Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope you're all having an amazing day. My name is Hamad Allah Bakhsh, and it is a pleasure to be before you guys. Now, I know it's usually I prefer to have a setting where I have an audience in front of me. However, ladies and gentlemen, I'm still gonna try my best to make sure that it is as engaging and as informative as possible. With that, ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be presenting my research on the impact of green transformational leadership, green employee behavior, as well as environmental awareness within the UAE hospitality sector. Now, before we start off with the presentation, ladies and gentlemen, I want to focus on a word over here. What do we mean by green? Well, I'm sure as many of you know, even a 7-year-old knows about it. When I'm talking about green, I may be talking about plant life. I may be talking about sustainability. I may be talking about environmental awareness. With that, I believe we have enough of a context over here to have a good base at understanding what these key terms are and what we are going to be talking about within this presentation. So let's get started. Right. Before we start off with the hypothesis and the key findings, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to focus on a few simple terms. First being green transformational leadership. Why leadership and why not boss? It's because, ladies and gentlemen, we all know how bosses are. They just like to give orders. They just like to give you commands that they don't abide by themselves. Leaders are not like that, ladies and gentlemen. Once a leader believes in something, they make sure that the employees get influenced by their actions. The leaders pave the way. The leaders influence the employees. The leaders make sure that they set themselves as an example for the employees. And when you have a leader who believes in green movement, who believes in sustainability, you can truly have employees that actually care about the environment, that have an underlying cause before they make a decision, that they care about the environment and then they make the decision on the basis of that. When I talk about enroll green behavior, what am I exactly referring to here, ladies and gentlemen? It's basically our everyday actions such as saving energy, reducing wastage, as well as following environmental policies. When I talk about environmental awareness, I mean employees who understand environmental issues and feel responsible to act. When I talk about green HRM, human resource management, I'm talking about companies including practices such as training, such as rewards and policies that actually support sustainability and not just make employees meet from deadline to deadline. Next up, we have the literature review, where we are going to be focusing on two main theories. The first one being the theory of planned behavior, which explains people's actions, how they're influenced by their attitude as well as awareness. The second theory will be on explaining how leaders inspire as well as influence their employees. Now, we do have previous research that shows that green leadership encourages employees to adopt environmental friendly behavior. Leaders who act as role models, they promote sustainability and influence employees to act effectively. However, the research that has been carried out regarding this has not been conducted within the confines of the United Arab Emirates itself. So, the focus of this particular study will be within the UAE, especially within the hospitality sectors. Now, based on the study, based on this, the study proposes several hypotheses. Whereas H1 states that green leadership positively affects employee green behavior. H2 states that green leadership improves environmental awareness. H3A states that environmental awareness improves green behavior. H3B states that awareness rather acts as a mediator, meaning it explains how leadership influences behavior. H4A states that green HR practices strengthen the relationship between leadership and behavior. H4B states that green HR practices strengthens the relationship between leadership and awareness. So overall, the literature shows that leadership, awareness, and HR practices are all interconnected with each other. Next, we move on to the methodology. wherein the study that was conducted by us was conducted within the hotels or the hospitality sector within Dubai. Initially, we contacted 12 hotels. However, only five of them agreed to participate with us. Out of these five hotels, there were both four-star as well as five-star hotels. Now, we managed to distribute a total of 300 questionnaires, and out of them, only 283 were valid responses. The study used purposive sampling, focusing on hotel employees who are relevant to the research, and the data was analyzed using the SPSS to examine the relationship that was between awareness, leadership, and behavior. Overall, the methodology made sure that reliable as well as focused data was collected. Now, talking about the demographics of the survey that we conducted, giving you a demographic breakdown, we found out that more than 60% of them were males, and around 94% of the survey takers were between the ages of 18 and 37 years old. Over 82% of them had either vocational or bachelor's degrees, and around 78% of them had at least one, if not 10 years of experience. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that our survey takers were young as well as educated workforce within the hospitality sector. Now, how reliable was this data, to be exact? Well, the factor loadings range from 0.6 all the way to 0.92. The Kronzbach alpha values were above 0.70. This confirms that the data is reliable and suitable for analysis. With this, ladies and gentlemen, what about the hypothesis? Well, the study found out several important relationships. The first one being leadership does have a strong positive effect on environmental awareness with a value of 0.356. Leadership also affects behavior with a value of 0.185. However, this is weaker when it comes to the relationship leadership has with environmental awareness. Environmental awareness affects behavior with a value of 0.192. With this, we can easily deduce that awareness plays a key role when it comes to influencing the employee behavior. Then talking about mediation, environmental awareness acts as the mediator with a t value of 2.17. This means that leadership does have an influence on behavior. However, it is done so indirectly through awareness. Talking about the moderation, the green HR practices do strengthen the relationship between leadership and behavior with a p-value of 0.031. However, they do not significantly affect the awareness as the p-value is only 0.765. In this case, one hypothesis is accepted and the other one gets rejected. Overall, leadership does have a strong impact on awareness in comparison to behavior. And awareness plays a key role when it comes to improving the employee green behavior. Moving on to the discussion, ladies and gentlemen, these findings are consistent with the previous research that was conducted. Leaders who do focus on environmental values encourage employees to behave in a sustainable way. Environmental awareness is crucial because employees need to understand issues before taking action. The study also brings light to the role of HR practices in strengthening employee behavior. Now, what practical implications does this study have? Ladies and gentlemen, with this study, we can truly conclude that managers can improve sustainability by training employees and encouraging green leadership. Policy makers can include environmental leadership in national sustainability programs. This is in support with the UAE's environmental goals. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give you a quick conclusion to the presentation. The study shows that leadership does play a key role when it comes to improving environmental behavior. Employees are more likely to act sustainably when leaders are the one who guide and support them. This is especially important in industries such as hospitality, which have a significant impact on the environment. Talking about the limitations of our research, the study does have some limitations as it was only focused on the hotels within UAE, and this data was collected or conducted at one point in time. Future research can expand to other industries and can use long-term analysis. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you all for being patient with me and for cooperating. Thank you so much for paying attention to me, and I hope I was able to leave you all with a great study.